Greetings.
Hello.
My greetings. Well met. Greetings, traveler. Greetings, friend.
The pleasure is mine.
Hello and welcome to episode 223 of Coin Concede, a Hearthstone podcast dedicated to making the competitive side of the game more accessible to you. It is Saturday, January 18th. We don't normally ever record on Saturdays, but this is a weird week. So here we are, after the nerfs and some time for things to stabilize, theoretically, until they get shaken up again when the new cards come out in 3 days? 3 days. Yeah. Man, it's a lot of change. Joining you from Gadsden, New York, it's me, Ridiculous Hat. From Karazhan, California, we have Botticus.
Hello.
From the Maelstrom, Louisiana, we have Appa.
Greetings, friends.
And Coin Concede is supported in large part by you, the listener. If you'd like to find out how you can support us and receive rewards in return, head to patreon.com/coinconcede. Big thanks to our newest patrons this week, Justin F., Lou R., and Zach K. You are all fantastic. Thank you so much for supporting us. And if you also would like to support us, feel free to leave an iTunes review. Helps other people find the show a lot. We had a couple recently. Big thanks to G-Star Esquire and Binoculars. We'll be reading those on the bonus episode on Tuesday. So, Life and Ladder. How you doing, Bot?
Good. I think, so I hit Legend, I believe, exactly a week ago. I want to say it was Saturday. And I was climbing a lot with Warrior to start. And then I kind of just got bored with how mindless it felt like it was, because my version was literally just point at their face as many times as it lets me, and then they die, usually from like 24, because I was playing the combo package. And got like to rank 1 with that, and then was seeing quite a bit of Face Hunter, just like a bunch of weird decks. And for some reason, I got bored enough that I decided to play Quest Druid, and I won a lot with Quest Druid. But I didn't like it. I don't know how else to describe it, but Quest Druid was winning a bunch and didn't feel great. And I had like 7 final bosses, and I just kept ping-ponging back from the final boss, basically. And 3 of them were token druids, which was really weird. I don't really know why all of a sudden because I would like get an easy matchup and then get to the final boss, and then the final boss would be a relatively difficult matchup. But if you go up against enough token druids, eventually they don't draw the right mix of cards, and then the last token druid played not Soul of the Forest, the 8 mana spell.
Forest Aid.
Yeah, so they played the first Forest Aid, and I played 2 Surgers to put 20 power in play and killed all the treants. And then they had to play it again the next turn, and then they just died because I had 20 power in play. So
seems pretty
that got me to
solid.
Legend.
Yeah, I know. Actually, Wicked Good was playing. He hit Legend earlier this month, and he was playing Quest Druid and like broke into top 200 with it somehow. Because sometimes people play aggressive decks, and they're like, "Okay, I gain more life than you have damage." It's if you have ever been a Face Hunter and played against this card, Hidden Oasis, it is not a good feeling as the Hunter, and it is a very good feeling as the Druid. Like, oh, you know, the 6 times you hit the button this game, nah, didn't happen.
Yeah, beating Warrior was probably the best thing about playing Quest Druid, because at that point people were still playing a lot of Warrior. And then I broke into like top 300 playing Galakrond Rogue, and kind of I've actually been playing Embiggen Druid a bunch in casual, just because that deck is kind of cool to play, but I don't think is good enough to want to play in Legend. So, and then I finally started climbing a little bit on Asia, but just kind of barely, because I dropped down into like 7,300, but I'm back up to 7,900. Still don't know if I don't know what I'm doing or if I really know what I'm doing, and it's really hard to tell, but still liking BGs a lot.
And for those that haven't heard our last episode, we're going to be doing a Bob Concede on Tuesday, which is our bonus episode for, well, it's technically, we had to make up a bonus episode for this month. We're going to be doing a Battlegrounds episode after the last one we did. I think there were 5 or 6 balance changes since then, including the removal of Nightmare Amalgam, so it's pretty hard to call it the same game. So we want to make sure that we go into that. That'll be an episode on Tuesday, which means next 3 days, I'm going to be jamming a lot of Battlegrounds. Looking forward to it. How about you, Appa? What have you been doing?
Mostly getting used to a school schedule again, because school started on Monday technically, but Tuesday for me, because that's when my classes are, Tuesday and Thursday. But getting used to that schedule, playing a little bit. I broke into Legend. I think it around. I think I was in the thousands, maybe like 900 or something, and then I picked up some aggro shaman. I shot up to like 350 or something. And then I've just been kind of jumping between the decks in Legend, trying to learn them, get better at them. I'm playing Galakrond Rogue right now, the Yarla list, where you play Devoted Maniac and you're just pretty deep on trying to curve into Galakrond as many times as possible, or as frequently as possible, and it's been pretty good. It's Rogue's really good. Like Edwin is obviously one of those cards.
3 mana 2/2.
Yeah, it's one of those cards where it's like it just creates an entire sub game around it, and losing that sub game against the Edwin sucks really bad. But all of the games where like there isn't a big Edwin involved, I feel like there's a lot of different directions you can take your turns based on like your lackeys and what your hand looks like. And I get this feeling when I'm playing Galakrond Rogue where it feels like whatever the situation I'm facing down, I feel like there's a potential to find like an out within your lackeys, just because there's like so many different things that could pop up, from like ethereal lackey or draconic lackey and that kind of stuff. So it's been really fun. It's challenging to map out turns like in advance. I've found, but I feel like I'm getting better at it, and it's really fun. Keep finding myself wanting to just hit the play button again.
Yeah, it's as far as Boogeyman decks we've had, both since this set has come out and ever, I think this is like the least offensive one. There is some potential for lackey fatigue, especially by the end of this meta, because boy, does that deck make a lot of lackeys. Like a lot of lackeys. The invoke mechanic generating a lackey is kind of... I don't know if it's a good idea to give Rogue like 6 lackeys by turn 8 most games, because all you need is a miscreant and a bunch of invoke cards, and you just have them. And we really underestimated Titanic Lackey. The Taunt Lackey, we really underestimated that when Saviors came out. Because I think the general consensus was that it was the worst Lackey when it came out, and no, it's probably tied for the best, I think.
I feel like I'm happy to see pretty much all of them,
Except
regardless
Dragon.
of except for the Rush Lackey sometimes. I feel like there's a lot of cases where I see the Rush Lackey, I'm like, dang, I wish this was like any of the other ones.
It's really weird. I feel like early game, you really want the 2-drop lackey, draconic lackey. You always want kobold lackey, but you want those ones early because you don't have things to use with the rush lackey and the taunt lackey and the evolve lackey. But then later in the game, you really want those 3 lackeys. So it's kind of it kind of ends up being strange, because you'll get to a situation where you coin out miscreant and you get titanic lackey and evolve lackey, and they kill your miscreant, and now you're kind of like, these aren't great, and like you can't really afford to hold them. Most of the time it feels like you can't afford to hold them in your hand, and so you just end up playing lackeys for no value. So it's interesting. I like lackeys a lot, and the rogue deck just gives you a lot of opportunities to make pretty cool plays. So
Yeah, I've been
I don't know.
having a lot of fun with the deck, and I think it's good, but it doesn't feel like it's the same kind of class of overpowered as a lot of previous best decks, unless you get a turn like one that I had yesterday, where someone friended me to say that turn was just the craziest thing I've ever seen. Where when you Wondrous Wand into a fully upgraded Galakrond, it's those turns are something. They're something. Drawing 7 free cards. Would recommend. Fairly good. Will win you games.
Yeah, I think somebody on this show said something about drawing 0 mana cards and how that was very powerful. But that same person also required a bunch of other cards to get nerfed before that became the best thing you could do in Standard.
Was that you? Were you the person?
Yes, I remember specifically talking about how good the Rogue Galakrond was going to be because drawing cards that cost 0 is really scary.
Yeah.
And
And it took us a while to get there. Zacho actually was telling us in the Vicious Syndicate chat that Apothecary kind of held the deck back because when you hit it on 3, it was amazing, but then later game it was just so mediocre. And it's much better just have the streamlined Galakrond plan. It feels like a better deck, but it does feel like people can compete with it if they want to, and the nut draws don't even win the game. I was playing a Conquest match against friend of the show and listener Based Ink today, and barely took it down, but the rogue was game 5 was the rogue mirror because our rogues both lost to other decks, including a game where I had a turn 7 fully upgraded rogue Galakrond on against a control warlock, and I lost the game. It's drawing 4 free cards on turn 7 and getting an Arcanite Reaper, not enough. Now, they played their Warlock Galakrond shortly after, and then gained 10 life with Sacrificial Pact, because this format is really powerful. Which you definitely figured out by me saying Sacrificial Pact. What a weird timeline this is. Standard is so strange.
I can't believe that. I can't believe that's a card that people are playing in their deck. That's so
It's
weird.
really strange. I like the
you
format. Go ahead.
You said Apothecary held the rogue deck back, but honestly, I think Umbral Skulker held the deck back even more because I feel like we got to a point when the set first came out where everybody was playing Galakrond Rogue with the amount of invokes in it, but they had this card Umbral Skulker in the deck, so it led them down all these other paths, and then they kind of decided that, oh, maybe we're supposed to play Singleton Rogue, and now we're back just playing Galakrond Rogue, but we cut the Umbral Skulker because realistically that card just isn't high impact enough, and you can just have the game plan where you try to fully invoke a Galakrond and give them, as Zalay calls it, the full Galakrond experience on turn 7 as often as possible.
Yeah. But I want to make sure I'm clear. I am very much enjoying Standard, and I think Rogue is a little overrepresented. It is good. It does not feel too good except the games where it is. And I know that sentence sounds very silly, but unless they are nut draw curving into Galakrond and they hit something good, because if you hit backstabs and shadow steps, like whatever, they were already 0. But I do feel like there are quite a few viable archetypes out there. Bodikus hit Legend with Quest Druid and had to fight against Token Druids to get there. That's a very strange sentence in the context of a week and a half ago. And it seems like there's a lot of opportunity for variety. I wonder if because people are aware that more change is coming, that they're not trying to just narrow down to the best deck thing only, and people aren't as bored of the environment. I don't know. I didn't play a ton this week. I was traveling for business in Kansas, and yeah, scenic Kansas in January. In case you are not familiar, it is actually colder than where I am now in New York City. It was 18 degrees last day I was there, so that was pleasant. Very long days of working, obviously, and then get-togethers at night. So didn't get a lot of chance to be around the internet or on the ladder, but got back yesterday. Get to do the show today. I'd like to thank Face Hunter for letting me finish my quests while I was still traveling. Very helpful, quick games. And I'm around rank 1000 Legend. Hoping to climb a little bit more, but it's BG weekend. That's what we're doing this weekend. We're jamming some BGs. And we're also going to be looking at some new cards because we have a lot of news to cover. So why don't we jump right into that?
Gadgets and Gazette always gets the scoop.
All right, so Galakrond's Awakening is about to be upon us. Comes out in 3 days. We will have the first set of cards coming out for the new single player content. So we finally got Reno's hero power revealed in this last week. I know we had Reno revealed, and then we didn't know what the hero power was, and now we have it. So Reno's hero power is passive hero power at the start of your turn, cast a random spell. So what do you guys think about this? Because when I initially saw Reno, I was thinking that it almost doesn't matter what the hero power is, as long as it's not a negative hero power or something, it's probably going to be a very good card. And now I kind of changed my tune, because it feels like casting a random spell at the start of your turn, it's potentially just negative. So I'm interested what you guys think about the hero power. Whoever wants to go first.
I talked about Reno, I think it was last week, whenever we saw him, and talked about how this is pretty much the dream effect that a Highlander mage deck would want, and I still think that's true. And before we knew what the hero power was, I was trying to think of what I would want as a hero power after that, and I kind of came to the conclusion that, like, the ping past turn 10 usually isn't all that like high value, so I feel like most hero powers I would take past turn 10 if I renode. So even though this one could be negative, it also has the potential to just be like neutral or even really good, and I think I would take this gamble at the start of a return over having the ping in the late game, just because it could potentially give you a good bit of value if you get just like a few good spells. There's obviously going to be games where you just kind of wreck yourself with Twisting Nether or whatever. But I think I think it'll be fine for Reno Mage. I think they'll be reasonably happy with it.
So, I made a list of every random spell in Standard. I took out the quest, I took out the Invoker. There are 349 possible randomly generated spells. Let's roll 3 right now. I'm going to roll 3 spells. First spell, we have Consecration. Second spell, we have Clever Disguise. That's generate 2 random spells from another class. Third spell is Whispering Woods. Hey, not bad. So, I looked over the amount of spells in Standard, and there's a lot, and there are some you really don't want to get. And I generally am not a huge fan of cards like this because you can't control the targeting. A spell that would theoretically be good if you could choose what it hits, like an unidentified contract or something. Or, I don't know, some spell, like Healing Touch. If it heals your opponent's minion in your opponent's face, it's not great. But secrets are good. There's a lot of spells that just randomly do things. You'll draw cards more often than I think you want to, because you usually don't want to draw cards. But it is better than the ping, because the ping kind of just doesn't matter at a certain point in the game. My initial impulse was to say this makes Reno bad because of the liability. I think this is probably not game losing or game winning, but it doesn't disqualify the card from being played, and I'm not looking forward to this being a part of the competitive environment. I think it'll be fun. When competitive play comes down to yogging, that's not always great for the player experience. So I hope it's barely not good enough. I don't know. I have complicated feelings about this card, because I think it's probably close enough to see play if you want the first half. If you want the Reno Twisting Nether, that also sounds. If you want the Reno Plague of Death, then this doesn't disqualify the card. But I think you have to want it because 10 mana is a lot. And this is not a hero power you build your deck around. It's obviously not possible. So you need the battle cry to be really relevant. And that I'm not sure about in the current Standard. Because in the current Standard, if I were playing Highlander Mage, I wouldn't want that, I don't think. It's close.
Yeah, I guess there's really no because right now it feels like Highlander Mage is kind of about abusing some big spells, and since this isn't a spell, you can't really do that. There's just like a lot of ways where you spend a lot of mana, but you get a lot out of that mana, and maybe this isn't the card you want to be adding to that. But I think you probably start with it and then figure out from there how good it is. That's probably where I'm at on it. In addition, we got a video with some of the new cards from Galakrond's Awakening, starring Dave Kosak and Iksar. Kind of a cool little video where 3 cards got spoiled, but I think we can just kind of get into the cards. So one of the cards that got spoiled was Winged Guardian. It is a 7 mana 6/8 druid minion. It's a beast with taunt, reborn, and can't be targeted by spells or hero powers. Yeah. So to me, seems like a lot of mana for a decent effect, but I don't know how many times we're playing there's already a neutral dragon. It's like a 7 mana 7/7 can't be targeted by spells or hero powers with taunt. And I don't know if the reborn helps this card out enough, considering lackeys are still in the format and they tend to stick around when you're playing druid. So I don't know. What do you guys think on this card?
Who wants to play
I thought
this?
it was better until you said lackeys, and then I was like, oh,
Yeah.
let's just eat this. That's not good.
Like, which deck wants to do this thing? It's a beast. It's not a dragon. It doesn't really have a lot of synergy with anything. It's
Maybe like some side quest druid thing.
I mean, yes, I would pay 0 mana for this card. I don't think I'd pay 7. I'd pay 0. But there are a lot of cards that are better if I can just not pay the mana cost. So I don't know. I don't know where this is the answer to the thing that I'm trying to do. If I'm against an aggro deck, they could probably deal 9 damage. You can probably deal 8 and then 1. I don't think that's too hard to do. A lot of rush in the format. Dies to a single Scion of Ruin. Well, the second half, I guess there's a 6/1 left over if only Warrior had a way to deal 1 damage effectively. I don't know. I wonder where we're going to see this. As far if we're ever in a slow value format where people aren't playing silences and you just want to play a decent defensive stat for stat minion, it's fine. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm kind of medium on this card. If we don't have anything else, we can because we have a lot of cards, so I don't want to spend too much time on them. We'll go to the next card, which is Rising Winds. 2 mana druid spell common, twin spell, choose 1, draw a card or summon a 3/2 eagle. For me, the first thought of this would go into like a quest druid because it's a choose 1 spell, and I don't think it goes in there because as quest you kind of just want to draw nourish and you don't want to draw much of your other card draw spells because like if you draw this late it's just not a powerful enough effect. So I don't know if this finds a slot in quest druid, but I could see something like this being in like a token druid. Even though it doesn't make treants, it seems just kind of like a fairly solid spell to add to that deck. So maybe this finds a home in there.
I was like, why would I ever play this over Power of the Wild? And then I read the twin spell word, and twin spell matters a lot. Matters a lot. Because it's a slightly worse arcane intellect that you can break up, or if you pop the quest already, 4 mana, get 2/3/2 eagles, draw 2 cards. Like, I don't know if I always want that, but if you have the time, drawing cards and cycling is better because then you get to your better stuff faster. And this is a reasonable price for doing 2 things that you never really want to do either, but you're okay with either. I think if Quest Druid is a deck you want to be playing, this is probably an effect that you want in it because cycling is good. And having 2 extra mana happens a lot.
I was just trying to think of the cards that you would want to cut for this, and there's not a whole lot of fat in that deck. There's not a lot of cards where I'm looking like, oh, this doesn't really cut it most of the time, so I don't know why this is replacing any of the cards that are currently in there. Except for Depth Charge. I was playing with Depth Charge in my deck, which we all thought was going to be really good. That card sucks.
Not
card's real bad.
not in this format. There's no way that like a 0/5 ever survives in this
I
format.
mean, Doomsayer is so terrible in this format to
Yeah.
begin with, anyway. So
Yeah,
like,
it's an effect that's not good.
we thought that it would be okay because Doomsayer is okay, but if Doomsayer was okay, then obviously Depth Charge would be pretty good too. It's just not.
That logic is a very particular shape. It's round. It's a round shape. Goes in a circle. But yeah, I think I would play Rising Winds over Bees. I think I'd play it over Bees. It's close.
Does Questry play Bees?
Sometimes.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. Let's go. Let's keep going.
Alpa, Alpa, what do you think about this next card? Arcane Amplifier. It's a 3-mana 2/5 elemental that says your hero power deals 2 extra damage.
This card seems like, I don't know, it seems pretty good to me. It has a like really high ceiling. Like if this card ever sticks and you get to take a turn and your opponent's on the board at all, suddenly they're not anymore for the rest of the game. And like 2/5 on 3, it's not like the easiest thing to kill. It's not like the hardest thing to kill either, but I feel like it's beefy enough for turn 3, or even like coin the set on 2. I feel like it's beefy enough to survive. Kind of reminds me of like a Tar Creeper a little bit, because like this is just gonna have taunt because you just can't really leave this up. You're gonna get 3 in the face every turn, or we're gonna like kill your minions or whatever. So I'm definitely gonna try this out in Reno Mage, I think, because that deck needs a little bit more early game anyways, and I feel like the upside on this card is really powerful, whereas like downside is you play a 3-mana 2/5, it gets traded into, and like you probably killed a minion with it anyways. And then like even top decking this on 5 is you get a 2/5 and deal 3 to something for 5. I mean, that's reasonable. So I think it looks pretty decent, I think.
It's like a Mage Skybarge. It's you play it, and they have to kill it, or else bad stuff happens to their minions. If you curve this in the Spirit of the Hawk, then you will wake up from your dream shortly. So don't worry too much, because that's just never going to happen. But if it does happen, I mean, then you activate your Jan'alai. I think this might make the Elemental side quest kind of playable, because Mage was really missing early Elementals.
I was kind of comparing this to like Chenvala, except Chenvala requires kind of a heavy deck building restriction, and this doesn't. This is just kind of a reasonably statted minion that you can put in your deck, and you're pretty okay with it. So, I don't know how that compares though, because I don't know how often we put cards in our deck because they're pretty okay. So I like it, and I think that it could definitely find a spot, but I also wouldn't be surprised if this is one of the first cards that gets cut, because it's not, game-winningly powerful.
Yeah, we still have, I think, the Hero Power Synergy cards we have left. We still have Daring Fire Eater, and we have Spirit of the Hawk, and we have Jan'alai. I mean, that's 7 cards if you really want to build Hero Power Mage, but I don't know if that's what we want to be doing right now. In terms of how the format looks, people are able to generate a lot more value than extra damage to your hero power once a turn.
Yeah, I'm not super impressed with the hero power stuff for Mage. It felt like pretty anemic. The only time I was happy with it was when Baku was around, because Fire Eater made your hero power deal 4. You could kill Henchman Thug with that, and then it was pretty easy to hit Jan'alai on that deck. I think I'm just gonna try this out like in Reno Mage, and I've also been working on another control Mage deck that I want to try this in. It's because it seems like a decent early play that may or may not survive. If it doesn't survive, it's probably like trading into something small anyways. And then if it does survive, then kind of get to swing board in your favor. Yeah, it's really interesting, because like I see the highs on it, but I also see the lows. So it's definitely something I'm gonna have to play with, I think.
I think the card that I'm more likely to play in Highlander Mage is later on this list is Escaped Mana Saber, and we'll get to that in a minute.
All right. Well, the next card is Air Raid. It is a paladin spell, 2 mana, twin spell, summon 2 1/1 Silverhand recruits with taunt. Pretty solid spell. Paladin needs help. I don't know if this is the help they need, but this is help. It's just kind of if you can make a go wide Paladin deck, then maybe this makes it. It also kind of works with like the side quest. So maybe if there is a Paladin side quest deck, this could go, because the side quests I've actually found to be relatively powerful when I've generated it off of random spells, but I don't know if that's because I was doing that in Rogue and it's different. So we'll see with this card. What do you guys think?
I think it looks pretty decent. I'm not sure if I'm overvaluing the twin spell or the taunt. I feel like if this just said summon 2 1/1 Silverhand recruits, I wouldn't be like super excited about it. But I feel like the taunt is like just good enough to make me want to play this. And I don't know, being able to go like 1-drop into this on turn 2, into turn 3 this plus 1-drop. I mean, it can fill out aggressive curves just like really nicely. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I could easily be overvaluing Twin Spell and the taunt. It seems like a lot of like players that I respect on like Twitter, like high level grandmasters and stuff, they seem to not be excited about this card. So I don't know if I'm missing something or if I'm just overvaluing the like value on the card, but something I want to try.
Yeah, I like the rate here, but I don't know if we're building around this with the tools we have in Standard. But I hope we do. It's good with a lot of the buffing weapons, with Sword of Justice, with Silver Sword. But those are all things that are not currently good enough for Standard. And 1/1s in a Rogue world are not well situated for success. Also, this curves nicely into your opponent's Awaken, which is kind of a bummer. So I like the deal we're getting here, but I don't know if I need to buy it even when I like the price. I just don't know if this is... I want to be doing this in a lot of Paladin decks, but I don't want to be playing those Paladin decks, so I don't know what that says. It's kind of hard to evaluate this out of context. There are times in the past I would have played this card 100%. Even Paladin would have played this card like crazy. Would have really loved this card. God, that would have been so good. That would have been insane in even Paladin. You just jam this
Turn
on
1
2.
hero
And...
power, turn 2 this, turn 3 this hero power, turn 4 called arms. Getcha.
Seems okay. Yeah, would have done that.
This card plus Knife Juggler? Oof.
Yeah.
Ooh.
There's something there. Maybe we can get aggressive again. I don't know. Twin Spell matters a lot for a deck with no card draw, and they rotated out Paladin's card draw.
All right. Next card, Aeon Reaver. It is a priest minion, 6 mana, 4/4 dragon. Battle cry, deal damage to a minion equal to its attack. This card is very good, except that it's a priest card. So priests with mid-range minions are like this is everything we always want in cards, right? This is a tempo play. It's a minion that comes down and kills something. This is like traditionally just very good, but priest has never really had a deck where this is good in. Like you would play it, this would have been insane in Dragon Priest. This card would have been bonkers in Dragon Priest, but we don't have Dragon Priest. So where is this card going? There's just not a priest deck that's just like playing minions and like it can't play like Rogue. Priest can't play like Rogue right now, because if it could play like Rogue, this card would be an insane Rogue card. But it's a priest card. So what are we doing with this card?
Okay, it's a common, and we're picking it in Arena. That is what we are doing. We are taking this Arena, and it is super good in Arena. For Constructed, I don't know. It's not a bad deal, but 4/4s are best against other priests. It's bad against Divine Shield. It's any big butt minion, like anything that gets hit by a Titanic Lackey, you're not happy about it. It kills Edwin on turn 6, which is
it kills like Edwin and Siamat. Like when they go for the Siamat Divine Shield rush and kill your minion, then this does good things. But like, yeah, like Titanic Lackey's super good against this card, and it's just like I'm just trying to envision the priest deck that's just playing on curve minions and tempoing people out, because traditionally whenever we've had cards that come down and kill something and leave a body behind are like tempo decks, like the Hunter deck that played deal 4, make a 3/3, or a rogue that plays Flick Sky Shiv. Like, we just don't have decks that are trying to play for tempo, so I don't know where this card fits.
It fits where Rift Cleaver fits. And if you don't remember Rift Cleaver, neither does Standard. It's that's the Warlock 6-mana 7/5 that kills a minion and you take damage equal to its cost. At a certain point, the trade-off becomes a bit too much, and here the trade-off is this ability is more conditional than it looks, and the body it leaves behind is not something that can really be taken advantage of by Priest. So I wouldn't be surprised there's a Priest deck at some point that plays this, and it probably makes Galakrond Priest overall better. Not that that's saying a lot, but I don't know what to do with it. And it's not. There's no problem that Priest has that is solved by this.
Yeah, but we got some cool cards next. Appa, let's talk about some Shaman cards. First one is a legendary weapon, the Fist of Raden. 4 mana, 1/4 weapon. If you cast a spell, summon a legendary minion of that cost and lose 1 durability. What are we thinking, Appa? You got anything spicy in the works?
Oh
Are
yeah.
the gears turning?
I'm not going to reveal all of the spice because I got to save some of it for testing. But I'm just going to say this into Hagatha scheme is a nice little board swing and probably game winning, honestly, against a lot of decks. Yeah, there's a lot of applications here for some Control Shaman decks. Part of the issue Control Shaman had in the past was it was really good killing stuff, but it was never great at like putting something on the board after killing everything. And this solves that with AoEs and hexes and stuff like that. I mean, I think the card has a lot of potential. It's just going to be a question of like, do we want to be playing Control Shaman? And if not, this card probably won't see play. But it's definitely got a lot of upside.
How do you think it pairs with the next card on the list, which we'll read out?
All right, so the next card is Eye of the Storm. 10 mana, summon 3 5/6 elementals with Taunt and Overload 3. Yeah, it's been mentioned a million times, but for 5 more mana and 3 more Overload, we get an extra 5/6 with Taunt.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of comparisons of this to Dragon's Pact, but it's like that. Is that what we want to be? What we're comparing new cards to is pre-nerfed Dragon's Pact.
Yes, I do
I
agree.
still
This
think
card
that-
is worse than one that they said this card is too good and we're going to change it. It is substantially worse than the card they changed.
I still think it probably compares unfavorably to nerfed Dragon's Pact, however.
I don't know. Like if I was playing a like Control Shaman deck, I think I would be reasonably happy to have like one of these, maybe 2 if I'm playing a King Feoris build. Because like against pretty much any class that's not rogue, like that's a really big like board swing. That's a lot to get through. You have to be playing like a very specific deck. Like I said, I would pretty much only play this in King Feoris Control Shaman, probably with the Fist of Raden. But yeah, I think it's a question of like, is that what I want to be doing? And I'm not sure. But I think this card, I don't think it's horrible. It's definitely more mana you have to spend over like Dragon's Pact in terms of rate, but the card's kind of busted, or it was. I think it's more in line now. But yeah, I mean, I don't hate it. I'm gonna enjoy getting it off of like lackeys and stuff because that's gonna be insane. Really bad to Flick Sky Shiv. That's game losing. So watch out for that one. But yeah, I think it's fine.
It's an army in a box, and sometimes you need an army in a box. Sometimes you will get this off of Hagatha, the hero, and 3 5/6s with taunt. That'll stop Warrior from killing you. It's you just get in Warrior's way. I don't think the plan is to pair it with Fist of Raden, but when you do that, you probably kill them the next turn, and that's pretty good. If you need an army in a box, there are worse things. It's if Control Shaman had this or Puzzle Box, I think you play this. I think this is better than Puzzle Box most of the time. Not always, but, this has a deterministic outcome, and Puzzle Box is Puzzle Box.
And sometimes Puzzle Box casts this.
Sometimes it does.
Donkey in
Yeah.
chat says sometimes Reno's hero power will do this.
Yes. And if it does that, then you are likely pleased unless they clear it, and then next turn you are less pleased. But yeah, it's
Unless it does it again.
yes. If you stay in the eye of the storm, if Reno said at the beginning of your turn, make 3 5/6s with taunt, it would be a better card. I agree with you.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
The elements guide me.
Yes.
You
So
have to let the elements
speaking-
guide you.
Speaking of armies in a box, this card is kind of an army in a box, as long as you have a lackey in hand. It is the first neutral legendary, Grand Lackey Erk. I hope I pronounced that correctly. It is a 4-mana 2/3 minion. After you play a lackey, add a lackey to your hand. Apparently there was a lot of discussion about this card, but I'm not on social media, so what did you guys see about this card? Because this card seems aggressively mediocre to me.
Yeah, I've seen almost nothing but incredibly positive things about this card, and I couldn't really put my finger on why I disliked it, other than the fact that it was a 4-mana 2/3, until Hat framed it as this is Glinda Crowskin, and we did not play her outside of Snip Snap, so I don't see why we would play this. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I obviously see like the really insane like ceiling on this card, where it's like you play this on 4 and it survives somehow, and then you get to like play a bunch of lackeys, get them back, and then like add one or something. I mean, it's like a decent value card, but I don't know. It's a 4-mana 2/3. That's just hard to like sell me on for this effect. I'm willing to be wrong about it for sure, but I'm gonna need to play with it. But it just looks too anemic for me.
Feels like you really struggle to find time to play this card. This is a card where I'm pretty happy to draw it for 0 off of a rogue draw 0 effect. But other than that, I just don't know where you're finding time to be able to play this and play 2 or 3 lackeys. And even then, how powerful is that really? So, I don't know. You'll evolve this off a miscreant sometimes, and it'll be insane.
So I want to make sure that I'm clear, because I misread this the first time I read it. It is a random lackey that gets added to your hand after you play a lackey. It doesn't give the lackey effective echo. Very important to know, because if you're envisioning a world where you Grand Lackey Urk and then dome your opponent for 12 with Kobold Lackey, it'll happen a very small percentage of the time, but you can't plan on it. For this card to be good, you need to have at least one lackey, if not multiples, and you need to win the game through value, and you need to not have a lot of cards in hand. Because what lackeys do is they fill your hand. And if you have 6 cards in hand and play 2 lackeys, your hand could be full right then and there. And then the future lackeys you play just don't get any value. So you got to be careful about that. You need to have the lackey value. You need to have the board space. You need to have the hand space. You need to have the time. Those are a lot of questions, and I don't know if there's a way to answer them all at once. However, very important, the existence of this card leads me to upgrade my rating of Dark Pharaoh Takan to a D, because I think there is a fringe lackey deck out there now, and I was thinking about, in terms of unlikely plays that are powerful, if you go turn 5 Takan, into turn 6 this and 2 lackeys, that's pretty good. That's 10-11 on 10-11 on board. Draw 2 lackeys. That's solid. We would do that. And because Warlock decks are coming around that have time, thanks to cards such as Sacrificial Pact, what a weird timeline, but also Crazed Netherwing and Netherbreath and
Plague of Flames.
and Plague of Flames is ridiculous. We have Warlock decks that have time now, and this gets to be your lackey payoff for holding the lackeys. There is a world now where you want to play Takan. There is a world now where you want to do that.
Is Trashlock, was that the Takan deck? Or did Trashlock evolve into a Takan deck? Because I've played against Takan multiple times now of just Warlock decks that have all of the lackey makers in them, and then Takan, and then Plague of Flames and other trashy cards.
Yeah, Trashlock was the Monsanto build that started with Leper Gnomes and Elven Archers, and now it has Swamp Dragon Egg, but there is a version that Muzzy developed that was adjacent that I will call Lackey Lock, that takes out those cards for Evil Cable Rat and makes her play Sinister Deal, and it has Takan in it, and it will absolutely play this card. And I think that board swing is enough for that deck to exist, which means I am upgrading my Dark Pharaoh Takan ranking retroactively. Very important.
Okay. Well, so that one has kind of a question mark over its head, but I don't think this next one does, but I'm interested to hear what you guys say. It is Sky General Crag, 4 mana, 2/3 pirate minion with Taunt, which I did not read at first, but that's pretty cool. And then Battle Cry, if you've played a quest this game, summon a 4/2 parrot with Rush. Wow, that is that's a lot of stuff for not a lot of mana if you can afford to put a quest in your deck. It's 6/5 stats, 4/2 of which has Rush, and the other half has Taunt. It's yeah, that's a lot of stuff. This card's very powerful. If just you have to play a quest in your deck.
Or a side quest. Side quest count.
Yeah, but side quests you don't guarantee are in your opening hand, so like, yeah, I see it, but you do play this in Quest Druid. This card's pretty sick in Quest Druid. But are there any other quest decks out right now other than Face Hunter? Which you would probably play this in Face Hunter, but I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts? Because this is a lot for a card.
I think Quest Shaman would definitely want this, but one of Quest Shaman's like natural predators is Rogue, so it's kind of it would have a tough time right now, and it's a little hard to like stave off aggro too. But yeah, I read this card as just a 4 mana 2/3 where you get a 4/2 pirate with Rush, and I was on board. And now that I see it has Taunt, I'm very on board, because the more I've been playing and like focusing on getting better, the better I'm realizing Taunt is. I used to think of it kind of as like a throwaway ability on a card. It's like, all right, whatever, give it Taunt. It's better now. But the more I play in Legend, the more I play against better players, I'm realizing how important it can be to throw down a cheap Taunt on board just to throw off your opponent's potential attacks the next turn. Like, that's part of the reason why Titanic Lackey is so good. You just slap it on like anything, and now you have a dorky minion they have to get through. So this could potentially come down and like protect your other minions and pick something off on their board, and then make attacks kind of awkward for your opponent. So I'm trying not to overvalue Taunt on these cards like when I read them, but I am having more of a respect for Taunt as an ability than I have in the past, especially in this meta, because if like this meta seems like it's all about just like winning the board and then kind of going from there.
So our Twitch chat is pointing out correctly that Quest Hunter loves this card, absolutely loves it, and I think the quest deck that does not play it is Quest Priest, because you do not want to resurrect either half. So you probably don't play Quest Priest, but this card's just super good. If you're not specifically Quest Priest, I think you play this in any deck that has any quest.
Well, like Quest Resurrect Priest, because like you would play this card in a Quest Priest deck that's also playing Aeon Reaver. Like if there was a minion tempo based Quest Priest deck, you would play this card, right? Like
yes.
I'm not saying that deck exists. I'm just saying that like Aeon Reaver could go in a deck with this card and a bunch of minions, and assuming you can actually complete the quest, which is hard to do in a deck full of minions, but assuming you can actually complete the quest, that's kind of an interesting tempo-y feel deck where Aeon Reaver could actually exist.
Yeah. Well, in post-rotation, this card probably legitimizes a lot of the slower quests. I think Quest Paladin would love to have this to slow down the game a little bit. It's just a really good deal. If you're hitting the Battle Cry, it's just a really good deal, and I think you're rarely, if ever, going to pass up unless there's some specific synergy problem.
All right. Well, we've gone on for a while, but we have one cool last card. It is the Escaped Mana Saver, 4 mana 3/5 Beast, neutral card, stealth. Whenever this attacks, gain 1 mana crystal this turn only. I saw you guys talking quite a bit about this card. It seems pretty interesting, but I'm interested to hear your guys' thoughts.
Mana ramping is obviously good, just like traditionally in Hearthstone, but I'm also trying not to let that like what's been good in the past kind of skew what's here, because this doesn't give you permanent mana, and it's only a 4-mana 3/5. It has stealth, which is nice, but like combat power of a 4-mana 3/5 like isn't insane. So I think if you put this card in a deck, I don't think it goes in every deck. I think that if you put this card in a deck, it has to be for a specific reason, as in you're trying to hit a specific turn, like Power Spike. I think this would definitely go in Reno Mage, because your best turn in there is Dragoncaster into Luna's Pocket Galaxy. Being able to do that on 5 is kind of nice. And I think you'd probably play this in Highlander Hunter. I think you could find some wiggle room for that. Playing a brand early is really good. Curbing this into Unleash the Beast, very, very good for stealing the board. Ramping that deck is good also. Just any deck, I think, that is proactive and trying to hit a specific like turn, or if you're trying to close the gap between your early turns and your Power Spike turns. So that would be like the Reno decks that I mentioned, potentially like some sort of dragon deck. I don't know. It's an interesting card. I don't think it goes everywhere, but I think that it goes in are going to be really happy to see this card.
Yeah, Reno Mage is the first thought I had. If you want to play something powerful on 6 mana regularly, then this is where you go. And Dragoncaster and Reno himself are both really good. It's going to have very specific applications, but I think it'll be relevant where it is, and I expect to see Fringe play. It's also kind of a terrible top deck. You really don't want this late game. So it's if you're planning on high rolling a powerful mid game turn, then you want this, and that sounds like Reno Mage to me.
And that's all the cards we have so far. Haven't seen any of the warrior cards, but not a whole lot left. I thought we were no warrior and no hunter cards yet, so I guess we'll probably know more next week. And with that, we'll move on to the next news item, which is a bunch of commentary that our friend Shi Zhihong gathered up for us from all of Iksar's comments on Reddit and compiled them for us. Just a bunch of information about recent responses to the nerfs and just kind of things that are going on in Hearthstone. And looks like Hat has some specific things that he has like in the show notes that he wanted to touch on that was in this article. So instead of me making a fool of myself trying to read all of this stuff off the top of my head, why don't you go ahead and let everybody know some of the major topics that he had covered.
Yeah, I'm going to try and read this fast enough that we get through it at a quick pace, but not too fast for those of you listening on 1.5 times speed, because I care about your podcasting experience. Iksar had an extensive Q&A on the official Blizzard forums, including a very important response from as to why they were nerfing the speed they were nerfing. It gave very clear answers as to what was different. So I'm going to read that to you now. It's a little bit long, but I think it's important. The changes I feel were absolutely necessary this expansion were the ones to Galakrond Shaman. It was the only archetype that was at a power level unacceptable and under any past circumstance. During playtesting, we honestly just thought the Galakrond Shaman was an incredibly fun deck to play and wanted to push it to a level where it'd be considered one of the more powerful decks. We pushed too far, it happens. As far as the rest of the changes, I think in the past we would have waited a little longer to take action. One of the advantages to waiting is that the fewer changes you make, the more I think players are motivated to deck build and create new solutions rather than depend on us to make balance changes to things that might appear to be slightly out of line. In general, it's healthier for the game if your first reaction to a powerful strategy to try and find ways to beat it rather than join along and ride the wave, because investing time into finding alternatives is undermined by constant changes. However, one of the core disadvantages is that change happens less frequently. A faster rate of change makes it so you're less likely to be frustrated by a particular thing for too long. Change can be fun. Expansions aren't just fun for players with the new cards, they can be fun for players with older strategies because the meta environment totally changes. So why are we trying something different? We've done some research, we dug through a bunch of data, trying to find out what the behavior of players is when they have a strategy they play, get nerfed. I think it's pretty reasonable to assume that a dedicated Shaman player might see a large decrease in play if their deck is nerfed in a way that makes them less excited to play it. Turns out, data hasn't really backed up that theory in a way we might have expected. We've done this kind of research in the past, but as Garrosh might say, times change. Of course, we've just started on a track to a different strategy. It's possible that we'll find over time, increasing the cadence of change fatigues players in a way we would only find out after sticking to the strategy for a longer period. It's possible that because we're opting to change cards more often, we'll end up change cards people didn't think needed changes at a rate that makes people unhappy. We'll look to the audience for feedback on that, so let us know. Found this really interesting. I like that they were just clear on Galakrond Shaman. They're just like, we made a mistake, we pushed too far, we liked it, and it was too good. But I remember one of the most famous interviews from early on in Hearthstone's time. They had a streamer summit, and I think Kibler in particular was saying, why is there not a rotating core set? And there was that discussion about exit points, about when cards are changed and when decks get broken, people leave the game. And that was back when they had the red X problem. For those of you that haven't been playing for a while, it used to be that when a card was removed or rotated or something, a big red X appeared over the deck and you could not do anything with it till you went and edited. Now they changed that so the red X never appears. You can click a deck and the game will say, we'll finish this for you with the cards you have access to based on what we think is good. And it works pretty well. So they eliminated that problem, and I think that's probably a large step as to why they can change cards a little faster, because players' decks, they can update them automatically with one click. But I found it really interesting that they're clearly taking a new approach and nudging things faster when they think they're out of line.
I think that's just incredibly interesting that they said that data hasn't really backed it up, the theory, in the way that you might have expected, because for the longest time that's exactly what we thought, is that, well, they can't make all these changes because people will just leave and stop playing the game. And it's good to see that the data doesn't back it up, because it feels like forever the community has asked for these faster changes and wanted things to get changed faster, and then they come back with the, oh well, we don't want people to quit the game, and now it's showing the data so far is showing that that's not actually the case, that people aren't quitting in the way that they kind of figured. So I hope that I just like to hear this thought process and how they're going to continue to do this until the data shows otherwise. Using data instead of intuition is just really a great step for the overall health of the game. So I'm excited to see how it goes.
I think the most important thing about this post is that it was made, and Iksar was so transparent about what their process was and gave us such a nice long form answer. And he gave a few other answers as well in the article. So really appreciate the communication as always. I think every single time there's been communication, it's helped. And every single time there hasn't been communication, it's been doom in the tombs. So I like when it's not doom in the tombs. And yeah, thank you, Iksar.
And just a couple last little things for the news. Dragon Poacher, I think is the name of the card. But in Arena, there's a card that is a 4/4 that becomes an 8/8 with Rush if they have a dragon. And that's too good in Arena because there's a lot of dragons in Arena. So that got removed. And it wasn't removed for a while. And then it got removed, and then a bug put it back in, but now it's removed again. So no more dragon poachers in Arena, and I think Arena players are much happier. Looks like also there was a patch for the iPad that...
Well, not yet. There will be. They found the
there's going to
fix.
be.
If you have an iPad Pro 11-inch, it is currently crashing when you try and play ranked. It'll be fixed when 16.2 comes out.
Good. Always good to get those fixes. And then the last little news item, we already had issues with Tavern Brawl last week. Couple more issues this week. They had a Tavern Brawl out that was out for like a day, and then they had to take it away again and then put a new one in. So now there's one where you add 7 cards to the deck and the rest of the cards in your deck are portals. And yeah, so I'm interested to see what happens when the because I feel like this might have been even the same Brawl that they had last week, but more issues with it, and Joe Mag is sorely missed. We miss Joe Mag.
We didn't share that news. We should share that news.
Oh, Joe Mag has moved on to a different company. or he's taking. He no longer works for Team 5. He had a little post on Twitter. We can probably link that in the show notes. That I'll have to find it. But yeah, sad to see Joe Mag. For those of you who don't know, is one of the core was one of the core designers for the Tavern Brawls. Kind of when you noticed that Tavern Brawls got a lot better, a large part of it had to do with him being the team, because he was very good at developing very interesting Tavern Brawls, very just very unique and different things. So because he was a really good part of the Hearthstone team that brought a lot of ingenuity to the Tavern Brawls every week. So we're sad to see him go, but happy that he's moving on to something he's excited about. And that's pretty much it for the news.
Before we transition, we're going to roll 3 more random Reno spells. So, Rapid Fire is the first one. Oh, so we get a copy in our hand. That's pretty good. We've got Earthen Might. And we've got...
Could be good, could be bad.
Lightning Storm. That's okay. Depends how many minions are out.
Also depends on overload, because I don't like when random spells overload me, because then I
Yes.
don't know how much mana I'm going to have the next turn.
I think after turn 10, that's more likely to be a downside than an upside. But maybe your opponent played a 4-mana 2/3 and 6 lackeys, and you just cleared them. You just destroyed them all with that random lightning storm. All right. Well, I'm sure Reno will be back with more random spells before the show is over. But for now, let's get into tournaments.
It's the grand tournament.
Right. So, the main event as of right now is the post-nerf qualifiers. We had the first full week last week. And the post-nerf meta, interestingly enough, the best lineup by a large margin, Highlander Rogue, Galakrond Warrior, and Aggro Shaman. In some cases with Doomhammers, in some cases with Bloodlusts. But it's the Aggro Shaman deck has really, really performed well in the qualifiers. And if I were a gambling man, I'd say that this lineup right here is hard targeting Rogue. You just want to really dumpster Rogue, and that's why it's built the way it is, because these are very aggressive Galakrond Warrior lists. They all play the Temple Berserkers, and that lineup won 5 qualifiers last week, which is a really incredible conversion rate. You want to be playing that. Now, Holy Wrath Paladin, also performing pretty well. It was in a bunch of different lineups, but the deck was in 5 winning lineups, sometimes with Galakrond Warrior, sometimes with Galakrond Shaman, usually with one of the Rogue decks, but there's quite a bit of variety as to what people are playing, but Holy Wrath Paladin was one of the better performing decks when in a lineup that could support it with an appropriate target. So, doing okay. Face Hunter was in one good lineup with Galakrond Rogue and Galakrond Handlock, which is don't let Handlock fool you, it's an aggressive deck. It just taps twice and then starts going aggro. It's like reverse Zoo. With Zoo, you tap at the end. With Handlock, you tap at the beginning, but you still kill them quickly in between. But you still probably shouldn't be playing Face Hunter. And one of the worst lineups, Face Hunter, Galakrond Warrior, Highlander Rogue. Very popular. It won 47% of its matches. Top 8 3 times, won 0 top 8 matches. You should not bring that lineup, and you should probably not bring Face Hunter. But if you do, just make sure that you take some different approaches to what you're targeting. So that's what we've seen so far. And we do have qualifiers this weekend, and they will be somewhat irrelevant by Monday because we will have more new cards available. But it'll only be, we get 11 new cards the first week. We'll see how good they are. Because if they're not that relevant, then maybe we'll see something similar. But yeah, I was very surprised by the rise of Aggro Shaman. We'll link an example lineup in the show notes, but it did very, very well. As far as ladder, well, there's a lot of Rogue. We don't have a ton of statistics about win rate overall. It's one of the better classes, but not the best. HS Replay shows Hunter as the best class. Vicious Syndicate, it's between Hunter and Warrior, but Rogue is the most played. And at the Legend level, 39% of Legend is Rogue. Now, it's not just one Rogue deck, but 39% is a large number. That's a big number. 2 out of 5 people are playing Rogue. At rank 1, it's about 37%. When we get down to rank 7, all the way from Legend to rank 7, it is at least 25% of the meta. There are lots of flavors of Rogue, but Galakrond's the one that's picking up the most steam. We talked about it in the Life and Ladder section. We have a link in the show notes. It is, even if you don't play it, you should know how to beat it because you will see it. You will 100% see it. Now, we're still seeing a good bit of Hunter, Warrior, and Warlock. They're all fairly popular. Warlock is likely the most diverse of those three. Hunter, starting to see some Highlander Hunter pop up here and there, but still mostly face. Warrior is Galakrond Warrior basically all the time. Warlock, Zoo is not bad. It's not as terrible as you might think. But Control Warlock is also good, and Handlock. Both Trash, Lackey, and Dragon variants are all pretty strong. Druid is seeing a good bit of increase in popularity, both Quest and Token. Shaman has fallen off pretty hard. It's the second least played class on ladder. Priest and Mage still have a modest representation, and Paladin is very sad. There is not really much to do with Paladin right now. I tried Donkey's Mech Paladin from last meta on this meta, and I would not recommend it. You don't want to play that when everyone's running Sap. Sap is very good against Mech Paladin. As far as ongoing tournaments, some League Format Series, Aspirant Series is still going in the middle of Season 3. It's going to the end of the month. THL is still going. Start of the 14th season in Legacy, 11th in Hero, and 2nd in Pro. And the Monkey Bubble qualifiers that Bemi is running, which is kind of the mid-level Masters, those are still going as well. I know the qualifiers finished last weekend, so those are still going. Coming soon. Appa, you ready for Arlington? Were you ready to start getting ready?
Yes, whenever we have the cards that are relevant.
Yeah.
I'm ready to start getting ready. I haven't been playing as much as I usually would leading up to a tournament, specifically because it's going to be a clown fiesta, basically, leading up into the event, because we get the first wing on the 21st, right?
Yes.
Yeah, 21st. And then we get the second wing on the, is it the 28th?
Yes, every week on Tuesday.
Yeah, and then Arlington is
Friday.
I believe, 31st. So it's gonna be interesting. But once the first wing comes out, I'm gonna be getting into it a lot because I think that's gonna be the most important thing going into the second wing is understanding all the decks that the first wing makes better or what the meta looks like after the first wing drops. So then you can so then I can use that pre-existing knowledge to take the cards from the second wing and kind of figure out where they fit within that pre-existing meta. So been taking a little easy before that happens, but once the 21st hits, it's gonna be a lot of practice. A lot.
Yeah, I was thinking about this, about how theoretically it improves your life balance, that you don't have to spend so much time testing leading up to the event. And I thought about it's like, well, no, you have to do all of it in 9 days. And that means the 2 months before is great, and then those 9 days are pretty aggressive in terms of the schedule you're going to have to keep.
Yeah. One thing I have been doing though is when I've been playing is making sure very few of my games are wasted in terms of how closely I'm paying attention, because I have a pretty bad habit of starting up ladder and then opening the internet or Discord or something on my other monitor and paying more attention to that. Whereas most of the games that I've been playing recently, I've been very focused on because I'm really trying to use my time efficiently, and I've been trying to practice just basic Hearthstone fundamentals to the point where I've actually been playing some arena runs, and that's actually been helping kind of show where I'm over trading or not trading enough, or just different stuff I'm doing wrong or I could be doing better on board, because that's basic fundamentals of Hearthstone is board control and what to do with your minions. And I've been focusing on that a lot, and I think I've actually been improving a good bit. I feel like I say this every so often the past month or so, but I feel like I'm the best I've ever been at Hearthstone right now, in terms of the grasp I have on game theory and thought processes through every game. So I'm excited, but yeah, trying to use my time wisely and practice what I can that will be relevant for Arlington, and that's just Hearthstone theory and fundamentals. So I've been trying to focus on that whenever I play.
Well, we're rooting for you. And as a reminder, if you want your Appa jersey, feel free to head over to our shop, shop.coinconcede.com, where all profits go to send Appa. Well, we'll get him better food when he gets there, I guess. It goes to supporting him. Yeah, we're all very excited to see what Arlington looks like, and it's going to be a crazy meta because those last 4 cards are going to be out for 2 days, and I guess we'll see how they do. 8 cards. Last 8 cards. Also, our listener series signups are going to start on Monday. That is Monday the 20th. The event will start the following week on the 27th. It will likely be Conquest format, so if you want to check that out, we'll have a tweet and a page on our website and in the Discord. Discord participation is required to do that, so definitely come check it out. Hang out with us. We're nice people. Got nice people there. And this is, if you haven't played in these before, the theme of this listener series will be Robobson versus the World, which is also the same as all of our other listener series because he keeps winning them. Maybe Momo's dad will save us now. We have quite a few listener series sharks. But yeah, come hang out, come sign up. It's a fun, competitive, but enjoyable environment where people are all about having fun. And that'll do it for the tournament series. So we have a mission. We have to get through a grab bag of listener questions in 40 minutes. Let's do it. Let's do it.
All right, so we got some listener questions. If your question didn't get picked from Discord, it's not because we're skipping over you. It's because we can't answer that question in a reasonable amount of time to fit into this, so it will probably become its own Decksplanations at some point, or be in our bonus episode where we spend the whole time answering these questions. So our first one comes from Number Theory. Just both of their points here. The first one is a Decksplanations on holding cards for value versus playing them for initiative or tempo would be cool. For example, when to play Veiled Worshipper or SI7 Agent without the effect. Other possible examples could include Rush minions when your opponent has an empty board, Charge minions like Leroy without lethal, and if there's ever a time you play Evil Miscreant for tempo without combo. So we actually have done an entire series on initiative and tempo for it spanned 3 entire weeks. It's episode 193, 194, and 195. But outside of that, I'm just gonna give kind of a bite-sized answer. Whenever let's take the SI7 agent example. If I'm playing against a deck where the 2 damage isn't incredibly valuable, and I don't have a lot of action going on in my hand, I will probably just tempo out a 3/3. And that's usually how I make these kind of decisions is this card important in the matchup, and do I need to just get on the board and start pressuring them? Then I'll usually tempo out value cards without the value you get from them. But it's all going to be contextual in terms of what the matchup looks like. So a lot of this comes with learning your deck really well, I think, because there's a lot of counterintuitive lines that will tend to open themselves up to you when you start really learning a deck inside and out. And that's, I think, where a lot of this tempo playing cards will come from.
Yeah, if I don't have another play that makes me not completely upset, then I'll just tempo something out usually. So if I have basically anything else I can do that doesn't make me upset, then I'll probably hold the SI. But if everything else, just redaggering or something, that's just going to upset me, and I'll just play the SI7. Most of the time, I'm more likely to play SI7 agent just on curve than a Veiled Worshipper. But if I don't have any other plays and my only other play is hero powering for Veiled Worshipper, you probably just want to slap it down.
Yeah, for instance, if I'm playing against a really fast matchup and my hand's real slow and it's not going to get to the point where I'm going to blow them out with a giant Edwin or something off this Veil Worshipper or whatever, then I'm gonna throw it down there and then hope to turn that into like a taunt with a taunt lackey or something later down the line. But I wouldn't do that against like a control warrior or something, you know? So it really depends on the matchups. Like your cards, your game pieces are going to do different things in different matchups, and it's about learning the deck to recognize when to go against, I guess, conventional wisdom and trying to extract all the value out of your card that you can.
The shortest and most correct answer is it depends, but that is not helpful. So the shortest rule that I can generally recommend: lower cost cards are much more likely to be played on curve for tempo than higher cost cards. You will play Zephyrus on 2 if it's not active a lot more often than you'll play Dragon Queen Alexstrasza on 9. Well, almost never tempo a Dragon Queen Alexstrasza. It's the opportunity cost of what you're sacrificing by playing a card like that at the high end of the game. It's so much less likely to matter because your opponent has so much more mana to deal with it, and they are more likely to have stuff on board already. If you're at the point where you're saying, well, maybe this vanilla 8/8 will save me, it probably won't, especially not on turn 9. But there are a few minions you really rarely play Edwin Van Cleef for tempo, but sometimes. But if it's turn 3 and I'm rogue and I got nothing to play and I'm against a face hunter, Evil Miscreant's coming down every time. Every single time. There's no hard and fast rule, but it generally aligns with lower cost minions. If your deck has these cards in it, that means it wants to do something early game. If you want to do something, then do something. And hero powering barely counts as something. Now that's...
Yeah.
You don't need to do that if you're against Quest Priest, do not tempo out a Miscreant on 3. You don't have to do that. You have the time. Just chill. Just wait a second. It'll be fine. Though that is the matchup where you want to play Leroy for not lethal. Because you want to have a dagger charge up, you play the Leroy, you kill a whelp, you go face for 6, and then when they psychopomp, they get back a 1/1 hopefully, and then you're happier.
I like leaning towards playing stuff. It should less be about holding stuff and more about just play your stuff and then figure out if it was wrong later. I'd rather lean towards playing something and realizing it was wrong than not playing something and realizing that I should have played something. Because I think you're going to win a lot more games just by playing out your stuff and then learning that, oh, maybe if I would have held it, it would have been better.
Well, unless you're a hard control deck, in which case playing stuff is usually worse than waiting. But there aren't a lot of those right now except for Quest Priest.
Kind of handlock.
Yeah, handlock's not a control deck. Handlock is waiting for its turn to go face. It is not controlling. But we actually did another episode 190, about when to not play cards. And so I think Botticus, I like the example. Assume you're playing your cards unless you have a reason not to, and then that episode goes into that pretty deeply, into how we advise when to not play cards. And that's, again, your control warrior and your Quest Priest. If your hero power is good enough to stabilize the game until you can wait and play a mass removal spell, that's when you want to do nothing. But most decks in Hearthstone, especially right now, want to proactively do a thing. And so choosing to wait and not do that thing, you have to have a good reason to not do that. Like, say you have a Galakrond on 2 invokes, and it's turn 7, it's in your hand. And then you have 1 more invoker in your hand. You'll probably play the Galakrond about half the time. Depends on the matchup, depends what's going on. But I would rather play a Galakrond for 2 than die with a Galakrond on 4.
I think that's a pretty good summary.
Let's keep it moving.
Who wants to read the next one?
Okay, I'll read it. So 85 Hawk asks, or says, I'd like a segment on how to get the most out of watching your replays, please. I feel like it was done... Oh, okay. Yeah, so how do we get the most out of our replays? Which one of us watches the most of our own replays? I'm going to assume it's Appa.
No, I can confirm it's not me.
Oh.
Believe it or not.
Okay, then what I do during coachings, which is similar, the best answer is share it with somebody else. That is the best answer. But the second best answer, pause it at turns where you remember having a decision, and then cover your opponent's hand. There's the option to not show their cards, and decide again what you would do. At every major fork in the road, that's when you want to figure out what else could I have done when you don't have the rope ticking down? Assume you're watching somebody else's game and you're saying, what are they going to do? And it can be hard to not just go with your initial choice, but if you have the time, if the rope's not ticking, you can pause. Don't just say, well, what I did is right because of this, this, and this. Evaluate every choice possible that made sense on that turn, and then see where they would have taken you. Open a notepad document or use pen and paper or whatever. Write down what you did differently and which card would be in your hand and which card would be in play, and then look at how that would play out. You're analyzing decision trees. Every time you take a different fork in the road, then you have a different game will unfold in the future. That is how I do it, especially in coachings. And I'll write down interesting turns. We can go back to it and look at the replay right after the match. And the sooner after the match, the better, unless you were salty and tilted, in which case, give it a minute. Do not go back. And do not fast forward to the end of the match where they Galakronded into Dragon Queen Alexstrasza. You're only hurting yourself. It doesn't help anybody. Don't do it.
Although, if you have the decision whether to, if you're making the decision whether to go watch a replay after a salty loss or run it back and play another game, go watch the replay, because you're more likely in that replay to find out, oh, if you're really able to analyze it, and yeah, you're probably still tilted while looking at it, but if you're really able to analyze it and realize, oh, I actually could have made a different decision here that could have changed the outcome. Or really, I think one of the best things about watching replays is finding where you could have made a better decision that may not have won you the game, but would have given you a better shot to win the game. Those are where I find there's a lot of value in that, because a lot of times you're just looking for a decision you could have made differently and, oh, it wouldn't have affected the outcome of the game. But those are still important to find, because some percentage of the time that does affect the outcome of the game, and you can use that in the future to do better. You're just looking to increase your percentage chance of winning games that are not going well for you.
Yeah, on top of everything that they said, I think one of the ways you can kind of look for maybe misplays when you don't really know what you should be looking for exactly in a game. Like, say there was a close game that you had and you lost and you felt like you could have made like some different decisions or something. When you're going back through the replay, if it was me, I would just look for at first, if I wasn't like sending this to somebody or like actively discussing it with them, if it was just me watching, I would look for turns where I had unspent mana, and make sure I had like good reason for that, and also look for potential like missed damage. This could be from like a missequencing, or when I'm playing rogue, this happens a lot. I'll kind of have to redagger with a charge up already, and that's usually just 1 point of damage, which, like Boudica said, may or may not be relevant, but it's something that you can prove on. It's the fundamentals we're talking about. And whenever I'm playing Shaman a lot, it is I think about turns where maybe I overloaded like one too much, where the turn after I needed 4 mana, but I had 3 because I overloaded too much. Or if like I absolutely had to overload that much, like was it worth it? There's a lot of that in Shaman in planning turns with overload in mind, that can definitely help. But those would be my tips on like what to look for, is like missed damage or unspent mana, like making sure you had a reason for that, and then from there kind of going back and analyzing different decision trees and stuff.
All right. Our next question from Brasky. When and when not to switch decks on your ladder climb, and why? Large question. We did a Decksplanations on this like over a year ago that I couldn't find. But basically, switch. You probably shouldn't switch that much. It's pick a deck once a week. This is what Wicked Good is doing with Pelletire. They're picking a deck once a week and playing it just for a week and not playing anything else. And then reviewing how the week has gone, and then doing a co-op at the end of it and seeing how they were playing it differently. And I think that's a great idea. But it really depends how you as a player pick decks. It is better to invest in a strategy and learn how to play that and win the bad matchups, unless the bad matchups become overwhelming. And it's been harder to recommend that in this environment because we've had 3 rounds of nerfs. So only so much you can do about that when they keep changing the cards and then new cards are going to come out. I don't know if there's a good answer in this environment. I don't know if there's a good answer when we get new cards every week.
For me, the way I look at it is I have a graph in my head where the x-axis is how much I'm winning with the deck and the y-axis is how much I'm enjoying playing the deck. And as long as the enjoyment outweighs the amount I'm losing with the deck, then I continue to play it. So the short answer is if you're not enjoying playing a deck and not winning enough to outweigh not enjoying the deck, then you should probably switch. That's at least how I do it.
I don't know. I do it based on stats. Like I'll use HS Replay or Vicious Syndicate, and if I'm getting like crushed on a deck, if the meta has like shifted and suddenly that deck's not very good, I'm gonna switch off of it. But if I'm playing a deck that is proven to be good, like say I'm playing Galakrond Rogue, and I hit like 3 games in a row where I lose, like I'm not gonna switch off of it. I'm gonna play like, like at least like a 10-game session or something with the deck before I decide to switch off of it, and I'm going to make sure that my decision to switch off of it isn't caused by tilt. It's got to have like a reasoning behind it, and usually I keep myself grounded via stats, because if I didn't, it would go by feeling, and I know I would switch too much. So I try and keep it like very analytics based.
Yeah, I'm not a good person to answer this question because I switch when I get bored and my attention span is not very large. So I would recommend our listeners not be like me. It's especially if you are prone to getting upset when you see a certain matchup. The best skill that any player can work on is how to beat a bad matchup and how to take it in stride when you lose to it, unless that bad matchup is literally everywhere. And like that, when the day when Galakrond Warrior with Armor Smiths became really popular, probably shouldn't play Face Hunter. But if you kept playing Face Hunter since then, I bet your win rate would be above 50% as of today. And that Galakrond Warrior list is basically gone. So it's a question of how much fun are you having, and if you're switching, is it to win more? Because usually when you switch, you will take a dip when you learn the new deck, and you need to account for that, because if you switch to stop losing, and then you lose 2 more, and you're going to throw your phone out the window, you shouldn't switch either. You should stop playing for the night, and then maybe switch the next day.
Yeah, also, if you switch, you shouldn't expect to see immediate like results in terms of your win rate. You should expect to have a period where you lose more than you win. Maybe you won't go like 0-8, but maybe you'll go like 3-5 or something. But you should realize that whenever you switch to a new deck you haven't played before, there is a time investment period where you're learning the deck. And you have to be okay with that. You can't just switch to a deck you've never played before. Like if you've never played Freeze Mage, you can't just switch to it and then expect to win a bunch of games. Like it's going to take some time.
As a corollary to this, last thing, if you are trying to not play the most popular busted deck in a format, and then after a few days of resistance you say, fine, I'll switch to it after you lose to it a bunch of times, you are setting yourself up for failure, and please don't do this. If you choose to not play a busted deck and then switch into it, everyone else has a 3-day head start on you, and you're probably not in a great mindset, and busted decks still lose like 40 to 45% of their games. So if you do that, you are setting yourself up for tilt and sadness. That's what happened to me with when Rise of Shadows first came out, and I didn't want to play the busted rogue deck, and then 3 days I'm like, fine, I'll play the busted rogue deck, and then I bounced off the rank floor for 4 days and hit my gold cap 2 of those days, and it was really bad. Don't do that, because you're just setting yourself up to identify yourself as, you'll just think, how am I so bad with this deck that everybody is winning with? How am I so bad at it? Be kind to yourself. That's all I'm saying. And yes, those were rough days. Don't hit your gold cap 2 out of 4 days. That's too much Hearthstone.
Don't hit your gold cap while being at the rank 5 floor. That sounds that's oof.
It's the wife came out at 7 a.m. and I was still jamming games on my phone on the couch, and it was not good. It was a beautiful sunrise.
So switch decks to have fun. That's my short answer. Switch decks to have fun, because We're playing a game, and games are meant to be fun. Shout out to Squelch.
Squelch. All right, let's keep moving.
All right, Brasky also asks, how do you get the most out of Zephyrus, basically? And I'm going to keep this answer short because Zephyrus is incredibly complicated, and this could be an entire show by itself. Have a reason to play it, and play it on turn 2 more than you are. Because the decks that it goes in...
Almost every game.
Yeah, the decks that it goes in, Wild Growth is very good. So, play it on turn 2, snag Wild Growth. A lot of the time, some of the time you'll get Animal Companion if you have a hand where you need to pressure something, but usually Zephyrus Wild Growth is going to probably spike your win rate if you're holding Zephyrus when you have him on 2.
Yeah, have a very specific reason not to play Zephyrus on turn 2. Know exactly why you're not playing Zephyrus on turn 2. And otherwise, try to find lethal with Zephyrus or try to find a board clear with Zephyrus, because that's what Zephyrus does.
Yeah. The best way to play Zephyrus is put your opponent to 6 and then play it with 4 mana remaining. That is the best way to play Zephyrus by a large margin. Do not play it looking for a really specific answer because he's been weird lately. Sometimes you'll get it, and sometimes you know for sure it's going to happen. For example, when you play him against Doomsayer on turn 4 with 2 mana up, you do get a Crazed Alchemist every time, and that's nice. But you want to avoid saying, I will get the Brawl this time, because sometimes it gives you an SI7 agent or a BGH or a Sea Giant, and then you're just like, no. All right.
Okay. So Brasky also asks for an analysis of the last time Hearthstone got a mini release, One Night in Karazhan, its effect on the meta, and your hopes and card predictions for the impact of the upcoming mini set. I hope that it's good and it changes the meta enough, but doesn't make such wide, vast, sweeping changes that people who are preparing for Arlington can't deal. I hope that it improves the quality of decks that are just a little bit behind. That's my hope.
Whenever this happened last time was also when I went to a major tournament. It was Playoffs 2016, One Night in Karazhan. The first wing was out. The wing before Spirit Claws came out, I think, was out. So I think it was 1 and 2. Is that right? I don't remember.
Yeah, I'm looking
Either
at the
way.
list right now. And so the cards that were available, I believe Spirit Claws was actually the 4th wing. I don't think you had Curator yet, did you?
I don't believe so. I know we had Silverware Golem, and I think we had something else that was important.
Probably Barnes.
I don't think we had Barnes yet.
Okay,
we
then
might
you
have.
only had First Wing, I think. And that was Enchanted Raven, Firelands Portal, Deadly Fork, Silverware Golem, Arcane Anomaly, Pantry Spider, Ivory Knight, Protect the King, Morose, Arcanosmith, Cloaked Huntress, which was very important, Priest of the Feast, and Maelstrom Portal.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun, honestly, testing for this. Wing got released, and I was like, all right, you got a little while. Test. Get as much testing in as your heart desires. And for the most part, the meta kind of stayed the same. There was the Silverware Golem, more aggressive card zoo that kind of popped up, which was fine. It wasn't great, but most of the decks weren't completely unaffected. But a lot of the decks that were good remained good. There were some different decks, some running Firelands Portal that didn't before because that card was awesome. I think some people played Maelstrom Portal and Aggro Shaman. I don't remember if I did or not. But yeah, I mean, I had a lot of fun prepping for that tournament. I enjoy this kind of stuff. I know a lot of people don't. I know a lot of people would like to just understand the format inside and out and every possible stat that you could have. I mean, I also like those kind of things too. I guess what I'm saying is I enjoy Hearthstone, and a new set's coming out, so it's gonna be fun.
Bot, were you playing? You were playing then, right? No, you weren't playing then.
I don't think so. Yeah, because Morose was out when Quest Rogue came out, which means that I had just started playing the set before Quest Rogue. So Karazhan Head came out.
So you started playing for Mean Streets. You started playing with Mean Streets.
No, I started playing the dinosaur set.
Ungoro. Okay.
Wow.
So you started
Ungoro.
when Quest Rogue came out.
Ungoro.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Well, it's So from a tournament perspective, I actually agree with that, but I think that I'd rather reward deck building than rote practice, because I think being able to get an innate understanding of a format is a better skill to reward than being able to grind a lot and figure things out over time. But they're both different skills, whatever. As far as impact on the meta, it cannot possibly be as bad as One Night in Karazhan because they nerf cards faster now. And One Night in Karazhan, once all 4 wings were out, they released a 1-mana weapon in Shaman that dealt 3 damage every turn, and it was way too good and did not get nerfed for 6 months. So they don't do that anymore. And they definitely don't print cards in the following set that make the weapon even better and then still don't nerf it, which is what happened as well with Small Time Buccaneer. I know we're going back a ways here, but suffice to say, the adventure format I think is kind of cool because the ladder meta adjusts itself over time, and it's nice to have a small cadence of changes with tweaks as people figure things out, even though I do think there is a little bit of change fatigue right now. I'm hoping this is not too much. But with that being said, this will have to be better than One Night in Karazhan, because One Night in Karazhan had some serious balance issues and they didn't balance correctly back then. That's the accurate answer here. And I don't know if the card quality that we're seeing out of the new adventure is quite on par with Karazhan either, because there are some really strong cards in this set.
And then the final part of this question is: so you want to build a deck from scratch? What are the best deck builders consider when crafting the game's most meta-defining decks? And we have a link to the episode 160 here, which is where we talk about deck building. I believe right before we went to BlizzCon, and I mean, there's a lot to it. We cover a decent amount on the show, and there's even more to it than we cover on the show. But I guess sound bites I could leave you with is like, have a plan when you're building a deck, and whenever you put a card in your deck, make sure you have a good reason for it, not just because I want this card in my deck. It has to serve a specific role and advance you towards your end game, whatever that is.
For me, there's kind of 3 bullet points, not necessarily from scratch, but there's basically three ways to build a deck in Hearthstone. You take a deck from the previous meta and add cards to it that you think make it better. You take an archetype that the developers were clearly trying to push, and you put those cards in a deck and then fill it out. Or you take what you feel are the best cards that were revealed in the new set, and then you build around that specific card, trying to make it as strong as you can. And I assume that's kind of how most deck builders are approaching it. They just try to build the most powerful thing that they can and try to make it consistent.
Yeah, I never do this, so I'm going to give very limited answer here. If you have a deck list that there are cards that work with your busted card, but then don't win when you don't draw your busted card, take those things out of your deck. And I'm looking at Spirit of the Shark specifically. You win with Edwin, and making a bigger Edwin faster seems good, but then Edwin wins you the game anyway. And I do like Spirit of the Shark, but that was kind of a culprit in the Rise of Shadows meta, where a lot of people were playing Shark Rogue, and you probably just won without playing a 4-mana 0/3. And there have been cards like that throughout Hearthstone's history, where it seems like it's you win harder when you play these cards, but if you don't need them to win, probably take them out of the deck for cards that help you when you're behind. Unless the standard meta is so warped that the right decision in your Jade Golem deck is to take out the Spreading Plagues, because it's not good in the mirror match. I'm so glad they balance faster now. I'm so glad.
Yes. All right. So Totina's Pizza says, I'd also like to hear y'all's opinion about playing around generated cards, lackeys, burglars, etc. My best advice I can give is that you play around general effects more than you play around specific cards. Obviously, lackeys are determined effects for a lot of them, so you can kind of play around lackeys by making sure your minions have like 1 or a 3 toughness instead of like when you're looking at value trades. Burglars are really hard to play around. So you kind of don't. But like I said, if you're trying to play around them, you play around effects rather than playing around specific cards. So like you think about board clears that they might have taken, or you think about pinpoint removal spells that they might have taken, or you think those are things you can have in the back of your head, but realistically you cannot fully play around burgle cards. If you're in a position where you're far enough ahead, you can start looking at specific cards to play around that they might have gotten. But in general, you want to play around effects, don't play around cards.
Yep, I agree with that. The longer a game goes on, if your opponent's holding a card, you can start to narrow it down to the type of card they have. Like, is it a burn spell? Is it AoE they're trying to set up? Like Boudica said, you're playing around effects, not specific cards. Lackeys are a little bit easier because if you're playing against a lackey deck, you can kind of ask yourself, if I was my opponent and I had, say, Kobold Lackey, would I have played it last turn? Yes, it would have been awesome for them. So they probably don't have Kobold Lackey, and then you can start narrowing down the list like that. But in terms of like burgles and stuff, just don't. It's you'll just end up psyching yourself out of more games, I think. In terms of like putting your opponent on something like you respect what they could possibly have more than you probably should. I usually just force my opponent to have it if it's a burgle. It's like if I'm like Galakrond warrior or something and my opponent's playing fox, it's like if Brawl's your only out, I'm gonna make you have it. I'm not gonna respect it. And that's kind of how I play around burgles. And I mean, it'll lead to blowouts, but a lot of the time, like your opponent's not gonna have the perfect answer. Sometimes they do, but most of the time they probably don't. Especially with cards like Blink Fox and like I guess Henchclan Burglar gives you better spells on average. But yeah, I mean, you can't really like respect stuff like that too much, or you'll end up psyching yourself out of games, I think.
Yeah, with lackeys in particular, there are 4 things you need to play around. Taunt, rush, 2 damage, do they have Togwaggle? Those 4 things. And I know the Togwaggle part seems superfluous, but it's very important to clear lackeys going into your opponent's 6-mana turn. It will likely be game losing if you fail to do so, and they get to play the Wondrous Wand a turn faster. Otherwise, like Appa said, Kobold Lackey is pretty easy to tell. But just keep track of how many lackeys they've made. And yeah, you can't really do anything with the burgles, but taunt, rush, and damage you can deal with. And those are the effects that you want to that you really want to make sure that you keep in mind. Otherwise, cards get made. Can't do anything about it. Dragon Queen Alexstrasza, how do you play around 0-mana Nazari? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? You're going to deal less damage in case they might heal it more? No, you're going to hit him in the face. And I don't know, the idea that we have control in what happens in every game of Hearthstone needs to go away. You do not have that control. There are some games that are far outside your control. Having the wisdom to recognize, this game I could have won if I played better. This game I could not have won no matter what I did. This game I could have played better and wouldn't have won. Those are your 3 options, and you need to keep all 3 in mind. And sometimes a burgle's going to get you, and other times it's going to be something bad, and that's it. It's what you can do.
Yeah, and I mean, kind of expanding on a little bit of what you're saying. Like, to be honest, I personally like really dislike the burgle mechanic, just in theory, but it exists. You got to play against it, and it's not going anywhere. So I have to be at peace with that. So working yourself up over like mechanics that exist and you can't do anything about, don't do that. It'll tilt you and make you play worse. I know from firsthand experience. And whenever you just kind of give up that facade of control and just accept things are how they are, and then you just try and work within the confines of that as best you can, that's helped me tremendously. So I would suggest doing that.
Yeah. As far as we've got one more question from Janice. Been thinking a bit about free-to-play other than the tempo of balance changes, which end up costing everyone more dust. There's actually an argument for DoD and the upcoming adventure trying to help budget players. DoD gave us all the 5 signature cards for free, the hero cards. I'm imagining how much more I'd have enjoyed SOU if everyone had been given the quest for free to play with. Then the adventure, while it means an additional gold cost, you were again getting guaranteed cards, including presumably 4 legendary heroes for the league. We know that's not true anymore, but yes, 4 guaranteed legendaries. This is way better return on 2,800 worth of gold than 28 packs will likely bring. I like that we're highlighting the legendaries because it's no different to anybody while these cards are in standard, but when they rotate, you get more dust when they turn into wild cards that you can dust and craft, and that's it. Just they're giving us more for free, which I appreciate. The value proposition of DoD in general is very good, as is the value proposition of the adventure. SOU was more on the expensive side, like quests and legendary cycles like that always are, and I do think there is a future where Blizzard likely redesigns things that access to the set's core mechanics might be something they give away. It's more development cost. They have to make more cards. And formats with more cards are inherently more powerful, and so I want to make sure that they don't add too much. And we're seeing what this year looks like with a little bit less stability, and I think there are ups and downs, generally positive, not always. But I like what DoD did in saying we're going to build the set around a mechanic, and we want to make sure you have it, so we're going to give it to you, and it's going to be good. Can't be too good. And Galakrond definitely started off too good, and we might still be there. But I agree that we're moving in a better direction here, and I do hope there's some kind of solution to the free-to-play nerf world we live in. But as of right now, what DoD did made sense to me.
Yeah, I think the only thing I have to expand on that is, since I play on 3 different servers right now, it's actually been pretty easy for me on EU to make decks I need to compete in qualifiers. I think the most dust I had to spend was I got Flick Skyshiv, and I had to craft Kronks, which, I mean, was a great value craft because he goes in a bunch of decks. But being able to Galakrond Rogue, because I've played like Miracle Rogue and stuff on EU for a long time, wasn't too hard. Like, they gave me Galakrond, I just needed to get Flick and Kronks. Like, obviously it's 3,200 dust, but I mean, I found it in my collection and had some gold, got some packs. And now I have the deck and I have a full lineup on EU. And on Asia, I've just been kind of doing my dailies and trying to grind out some dust over there, and then when I can craft Kronks over there, I'll have some decks over there too. It's they gave us the mechanic that they built around, and then just needed to like basically craft some enablers and some important legendaries, and I was good to go. So it's been nice for me on EU and my other accounts with how they gave away all the Galakronds.
Did we do it? We did it? In fact, Reno even has time to roll 3 more spells. So let's see. What do we got? So, Reno says, first spell, Betrayal. That's enemy minion, right? It's not bad. We've got Pressure Plate. That's solid. And we've got Lightning Storm again. Second Lightning Storm. Point out, the 2 Lightning Storms have been the worst spells we've rolled. No Myras yet.
The Elemental +2/+2
Earth
could
and
have
Might.
been bad.
Could have been bad.
Earth and Might could have been bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm also trying to think about these spells in the context of the board just got wiped. So if this is the first spell we roll, then it's probably buffing our opponent's minion. But like the longer down the road the game goes on, then that becomes less relevant. But I think that's something important to note too.
If their minion was an elemental, then we get an elemental in our hand.
That is true. That is a true statement. We'll see how relevant that means. That is. All right. Well, we have many folks we'd like to thank. Check out our thanks section on the website at coinconcede.com. You can also find our contact info, our show notes, and our Patreon information. You can support our show at patreon.com/coinconcede. Join us every week live by following us on Twitch at twitch.coinconcede.com. Join our community chats in our Discord at discord.coinconcede.com. Write into our email at coinconcede@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at coinconcede. Like, share, and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/coinconcede. If you like some CC swag, head over to our shop at shop.coinconcede.com. Huge thanks to our producers, Variatus, Number Theory, Itinerant Wizard, and Doge DK. We also want to especially thank all the people that wrote in, even if we didn't ask your question yet. Number Theory, 85 Hawk, Brasky, Totino's Pizza, Janos, A. Curry, and Ermel668. Thank you so much for writing in. I'm also going to coin concede specifically to Mishav. Thank you so much for writing in your email. We got it. We'll reply to it soon. And Binoculars and G-Star-esque for your reviews. iTunes reviews really help us and help other people find the show, so we greatly appreciate you taking the time. And we'll read those out in the bonus episode on Tuesday. Also, Coin Concede to Joe Mag for being just a great dude. Botticus, how about you?
I would like to coin concede to Number Theory. Had a pretty sweet coaching session with him earlier. Got to play some Galakrond Rogue. Had some very interesting games, including the last one where we were in the Rogue mirror, and the correct play for us was to not play a minion for 2 turns because they got a armor smith off of a lackey, and so I did not clearly communicate that we needed to keep the life drinker back in our hand, and we ended up losing it. But had we not, we had a chance to win that game, and that was pretty interesting sequence of events. So sometimes the play is to not play anything.
Have you seen War Games? The movie War Games?
No.
There's a very famous quote in it that sometimes the only winning move is not to play. Very famous. Everyone that listened just loved that reference, but Appa wasn't alive then, and you didn't watch it, so it's fine. And Appa, who would you like to coin concede to?
I just want to coin concede to everyone who's been wishing me good luck in Arlington. It means a lot to have support, and it's it just feels really nice to see that people support you and back you. And I'm just gonna go into the tournament and make sure I'm as prepared as I can be, make sure I'm happy with my lineup, and then just see how it goes from there. Just play my best and not be upset with the result.
The Zen mentality is the best one, and that's what we're going to wish all of you. Until next week, keep calm and be at peace with the burgle. And if you see us on ladder, coin concede.
Coin concede.
Coin concede.
I go home now. Boss will not like this.
You really sunk me ship.
You fiends have best. No wins today.
Back to the lamp. Our plans did not work.
I have no more time for this.
It's time to give up.